Rowntree and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you, everyone. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Bland. Number 2 is acknowledgements. I have no acknowledgements, councillors. Number 3, declaration of conflict of interest. Councillor Rowntree.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to declare that I have a general conflict of interest in a matter being listed in the confidential section, and then I'll outline what I will do at that time in the agenda.
Thank you. Anyone else in conflict of interests? There being none, move to item 4, confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidential part held on the 21st of February. No, that way, Councillor Rowntree, you move.
Also have a question.
And yes, and is there a seconder, please? Councillor O'Hara beat you to it. Councillor Rowntree, your question is?
Just wanting to check that the minutes that are uploaded include the change to the Carnarvon washing machine under the Section 41 committee.
We have put a note that there was a motion on notice to come with that. We haven't changed the minutes themselves.
Minutes are recording of the meeting.
Yeah.
As it happened.
So through you, Mayor, that will wait after the motion is.
I'm sorry, I've got the squeaky one again.
Squeaky mic.
I would suggest that there is no need to change the minutes because it wasn't actually in the minutes of the Section 41 meeting. I'll go back and check, Councillor.
Okay.
Peach, in relation to something in the minutes?
Yes, I believe Councillor Rowntree raised at the time that having it reflected as a decision report wasn't necessarily accurate and asked for it to be amended at the time. Because it was part of a report that was noted.
And the report, no, through you, Mayor, the report noted that the job was completed, and I had raised that it wasn't completed.
And through you, that's why I voted against that report on that basis.
There is nothing in the Section 41 minutes from that committee meeting since 2021 that refers to the washing machine as an outstanding item.
It was in there, through you, Mayor, it was in their minutes, but it was marked under the Section 41 committee to-do list as an action item that was completed and that it wasn't going to be done. That's what it said in the action list, that it was basically had been considered and it wasn't going to be done. And I felt that we hadn't even got to the point where we discussed it and that perhaps it might not have been recorded as completed, and just wanted us to see that changed.
Councillor, I take it at that time that was the interpretation. Now, since then, you've raised it with Councillor Peach, it's been reconsidered.
So my question then, before we approve the minutes of that meeting, were the minutes that were taken from that meeting after I raised the issue, was it updated on the website?
Go.
Councillor Rowntree, are you referring to the council, the public council minutes?
Yes.
Yep. And the report that received the Section 41 committee minutes from the Carnarvon poll. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it was in the Director Miles's report.
Corporate and Community.
Sorry, couldn't remember the title off the top of my head. That the item had been noted and actioned as not proceeding or something along those lines. And that was the point at which Councillor Rowntree asked for that to be corrected, as council hadn't made a decision, and she flagged that she was going to raise it as a motion later on in the minutes.
Yep. So through the Mayor, that Section 41 action report has been updated. So that now reflects that the action is still live.
Okay, so it's not, and that doesn't form part of the minutes then, does it?
No.
Okay. I'll accept that. So I'm happy to move those minutes in.
Anyone else in relation to the minutes? Being none, you'll close.
Close.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 5, adjourned business. Dog and Cat Management Board nomination of a representative. Councillors, there's two options there. There's a report been updated. Councillor Roundtree.
I noticed that it's the committee meets 11 times a year. Does that put any significant strain on a staff member? And I guess what I'm getting at is if they had information that they needed to glean, would they not just call the committee or call someone to get what they need? Is it relevant for us to have somebody on that committee? And what do we get from having someone on that committee? Because if there's anything,
Through you, Mayor. This is just a nomination to the LGA. There may also be other councils who nominate somebody, so there's no guarantee with that.
okay.
Our expert in that area, we have one staff member who has declined to be nominated for that. I would recommend that unless somebody has a passion for it, there is no extra merit to be gained in having a member.
Then I'll move option 2.
You, Councillor Roundtree, you're moving option 2 of that adjourned business. Councillor Qualman, are you the seconder?
Yes, I'm second it, thank you.
Is there any further debate around option 2? Being the motion. Closing.
Closed.
So I put the motion, which is that the council receive and note the report. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Next item is the Mayor's report, councillors. Any questions? Sorry, Councillor Roundtree,
That's all right.
I'm looking at my own report. Yes,
Close to my heart, February 6th, Canal Primary School Review Committee meeting at Fimaduke.
yes, that process is nearly complete.
Can you tell me what the process is, please?
Process is as by the regulations from the Education Department, which has had public consultation, and the committee has reviewed that, all that consultation now, including some late ones.
Do we have a decision?
Very close. Councillor Qualman, you're waving your pen for a reason.
I will ask if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
General discussion with the Raucan Community Council and CEO, Raucan, please.
So councillors, so the CEO, myself went out for, I suppose, we'd hope will be probably at least every 6 months a visit. And just a general discussion, the membership, the leadership of that community council has changed. We felt it was prudent to meet them again and see what they're up to and vice versa.
On that subject, was there anything gleaned?
Not of urgent. No, I don't believe so. Hold on. Just a good meet and greet. I make a comment about the district bus tour. Councillors, I thought we covered a fair bit of ground, quite literally. But is there an appetite to perhaps do another one? Perhaps not quite as long in distance, but cover the balance of the area and that? Is that what I picked up
Yes,
that
definitely.
day? Councillor O'Hara, you missed out, didn't you? Yeah. You there?
Oh, yeah, the only thing I think it should be split up. One, we're sort of a bit garage.
Yeah.
One trip we should go to Salt Creek, then the next time go down the Dukes.
Yeah, we certainly
Agree with
were
that.
ambitious in our target and the bus driver kept us to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just,
On that subject, Mayor, would it, could it be possible to maybe meet at Canalpin as a central point, that the tail and crew get them to Canalpin and the southern meet at Canalpin to
Just-
get on a bus there?
just look at where we didn't go this first time. It's probably the prudent part of what I gleaned there.
I just think it would be useful for those who travel their distance the other direction
Sure.
to sort of centralise it a bit, perhaps if we can.
The Murray-Darling Association Region 6, I only attended the start of the meeting. I had another appointment. Once I got the right meeting venue. Yes, you've
And
done
one more
well.
question. The LGA Principal Member Forum, how did you go with that one?
How did I go? Well, it wasn't a test, councillor. I think approximately 52 or 3 of the presiding members of the 68 in the state were there. Very interesting day and a half of learning, how I describe it. Obviously with mostly, a fair few of new mayors there. including the new Adelaide City Council mayor. We'll see when you test me out in the future. Okay. Next item is councillor members' reports. Very good to see you started well, councillor Maidman.
Thank you, Mayor.
And councillor Qualman, have you got anything to add to your reports?
No, just that, Mayor, a bit like you were saying though, I enjoyed that bus trip, and yes, we should have another one to inspect the district. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yes,
through you, Mayor, if
councillor.
I may, the student art show at Taylor showcased just what talent we do have in this area, and that was really good to go to.
Oh, very good.
And I agree with councillor Qualman about the bus trip, and it opened my eyes just how vast
Vast is your
the
word.
council is. So very informative. I loved it, actually.
That's my word now for you. It's vast.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 7, petitions. I have nil. Item 8, deputations. I do not have any deputations. We don't. Item 9. Actually, it looks like we have no public questions because there's no one. We'll move on from item 9. Just would note at that point that we are having council in the community. We've decided that. And it gives the opportunity to meet community groups and people on those dates if this gets passed today, council. Decision reports, item 10, councillors. Reconciliation Action Plan Report, item 1. The recommendation is council receive and note the report. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Maidman. Is there a seconder?
I have a question.
I'll continue to ask for a seconder first. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman will be the seconder. Question will be.
So I have quite a few questions about how we're travelling with the RAP, and I would like to request we can have a bit of a workshop on this. It's probably more appropriate to discuss it in a workshop format, if we could note that somewhere. But one of the things I was interested in is this $8,000 per annum for the First Nations business showcase, and asking a bit more information around what that means.
CEO to answer that one.
Thank you. They're not, we should have set it out slightly differently. They're not part of the same answer. So the actual deliverable was to investigate the Supply Nation membership. When we found out that it was $8,000, we decided that we didn't think we would get value for money for what we wanted to do. And so we've started to attend the First Nations Business Showcase instead, which is a free event and which should give us the context we need in this area.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, that's what I had looked up to, the Entrepreneur Hub is free membership. Yeah, so I was a bit concerned. Thank you.
So I haven't given Councillor Maidman an opportunity to speak to her motion, but she doesn't have.
Oh,
to.
no,
You can reserve your right.
no.
Anyone else wish to go into any debate around this? But we've just noted this. Some councillors would like to have a workshop on this, so
Mr.
I'll take that as being a given. We will in the near future. Councillor Harper.
Yeah, can I just make a comment? I'm just wondering where we're going with this, because when we started on this and we first had the basis of it out, I asked the question where it was going, and it was the reply, which is unrecorded, was from the CEO, it's only an internal staff document. Now, this is not an internal staff document, what we've got here now, or what we are proposing. So, you know, if it's an internal staff document, it's gone way out of bounds. I'm just wondering where we're going with this.
So you may. So the RAP is predominantly to guide an organisation in this particular area. There will be, by the nature of the activity, external activity, because we rely on input and consultation from Narrandjeri, NARCAT, not so much, but Indigenous leaders across the district. So by its nature and the fact that we have Relcan in the community means that there will be external elements to it. But the predominant focus of a RAP is to guide the organisation to make sure that our practices reflect the 8% of the community who in our case is Narrandjeri. So if in the simplest terms, it's around looking at are our profile of our workers reflect the 8%? The answer is no. What do we need to put in place? Are we looking at using businesses that have a Indigenous focus? The answer is we don't do that yet, but we still are certainly making a comment about whether the contractors, for instance, some of our road contractors make a point of telling us that they actually employ Indigenous people. So it is about the internal mechanism of the council, but by its nature, there are external elements to it, if that makes sense.
Well, you're talking about 8% of population. What about the other 92%? We're leaving them behind. You know, like we've got disabled policies, all these sort of policies. But really, when we don't put much guts behind them, you know, like we've got policies, but you just haven't got the money.
The next item's a disability one, councillor, if you can say. Councillor
We can
Pete,
receive that report, but I'd like to.
so we'll have a workshop around it.
We'll find out where it's
Have a
going.
workshop around it. Councillor Peach,
Two things through you, Mr Mayor, if I may. One thing is 6.4, which notes as completed after our visit to Rauken. I'd be keen to see that changed to in progress, because while we did visit Rauken, we didn't really get an opportunity to engage fully with the community there, and I'd like to see that happen at some point in the council term.
and perhaps I might note, councillors, we have got a date in April for the opening of the viewing platform, which would be an ideal opportunity for all of us to be out there.
When we do come back and look at this as a workshop, could consideration be given to what an advisory panel would look like as opposed to or in conjunction with a RAP? I'd just be keen. I'm aware that some other councils do that, and I'd just be keen to explore how that would perhaps work.
I'll leave it down here, Mayor.
That's my neck.
Sounds like your neck.
Well, it is my neck, that's the trouble.
We can certainly look at that. I think if you explored the other councils, the advisory council with relating to Indigenous issues is probably related to their RAP as well. But there's certainly many ways that this can be done. And to be perfectly frank, we've stalled a little bit on this in the new year. There's been lots of other things. So we haven't put as much energy into some of these items as we would have. But coming into the new term of council and budget, there are certainly many other things that we could consider, and a workshop would be a good way to explore those.
Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree,
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that there were a number of things that said deferred due to HR Human Resources Framework review. Can you just talk a bit more about what that means?
So, as you know, we're currently compiling some resources for staff around HR practices and corporate practices. In a sense, this is premature. We should be doing the policies and the processes, if you like, for staff, and then the items that will relate to the RAP or to Indigenous staff will be a subset of that. So we were putting the cart before the horse. So it's really there on hold. And because this RAP will go over a couple of years, we can easily defer them until next year until we do the other.
Okay, thank you.
okay, anyone else want to speak for or against? Councillor Moment, you'll close.
Close.
So councillors, the recommendation is that we receive and note the report. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item number 2, Disability Access and Inclusion Plan Inclusion Plan Progress Report. Someone move the recommendation?
A question?
I'll see if there's a mover
I'm happy to
first.
move it, but I was.
You'll move it?
Yes.
There a seconder? Councillor O'Hara, thank you. This is a seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you have a question rather than speak to it.
I do, thank you, Mayor. So I noticed that the council have met their reporting obligations and legislative requirements. Are council required to demonstrate action? So to me, it's a document that talks about a lot of things we're going to do, a lot of policy, a lot of high level stuff. But do we ever at any point need to go back to the government and say, look, this is our plan and this is what we've actually done, like footpaths or ramps? Do we have to legislative show actions? Because I feel like there's a gap if we don't.
Mayor, I'll
you go.
start and I'm sure Miles will chip in.
Yep.
When we start to do new work, there is an obligation on us to fulfil the legislation. We don't have to retrofit. We can, if we choose to, and put budgets towards retrofitting things that aren't compliant, but it's about new work going forward. that we are definitely have a responsibility. Miles, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, through your worship. Like any new regimes that are created, there's always a bit of a grace period. And with the disability access and inclusion plans, they are driven from the Commonwealth to the state. And the state then pass on responsibilities to local government. And we're expecting exactly what you were saying, Councillor Roundtree, in the next couple of years, where there would be a requirement to report back on progress. But just at this moment in time, the main requirements to have a plan in place and to present that plan back and have the right frameworks. But I think we're only a year or so off from an auditing process.
Further to that then, is it likely to do this body of work that we will receive some sort of federal or state grant funding to fill in some of these gaps? Because I feel like they're legislatively putting this on us to do it. Are they going to back up that with a bit of funding?
You may. Short answer is probably no, but there may be grants around that we could take advantage of.
And I'll just add to that, Your Worship, there isn't an underwriting principle that you only act within your financial capacity to do so.
So in which case then, if we don't allocate money towards it, we'll have a plan that can't do much. So at some point, we're going to have to sit down and go, if we want to achieve these things, they're going to have to end up in a budget at some point.
Through you, Mayor. So a good example of that is our front doors of this building.
Yeah,
They're heavy, and there may be some grants around that we would look at if we wanted to reconfigure them to be more disability compliant. But it will also require budgets of council.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate? Oh, Councillor Roundtree, I don't know if you've opened or you'll close.
Okay.
Close. Thank you. The motion is that council receive and note the report. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Number 3, the LGA Ordinary General Meeting, the half-yearly meeting in Adelaide. Councillors, I would encourage you, if you would like to come, I see this is a one-day meeting in Adelaide, the way I read it. If you wish to, particularly the new councillors, if you wish to. Councillor Peach, we know could be busy. Councillor Roundtree?
Can I nominate Councillor Maidman, if she's keen?
Well, you can, because you can move the motion with her name, but I'd encourage anyone. This is a good day to see the machinations of the LGA in action, and there's some discussion, as we note there, from, I think the Electoral Commissioner is speaking at this one, which will be fascinating, Mick Sherry, but also there's a guest speaker from Tasmania. I always think a different perspective is always quite useful. So you're moving the motion with myself and Councillor Maidman.
And anyone else who wants to go, I'm not limiting it.
I think we do need a name today. Is that how it works, Ashley, from memory? Referred. So if anyone else wants to have a lovely day in Adelaide.
Councillor Coleman?
No.
Councillor O'Hara may have been through it before. Sorry. I accept Councillor Peach, you'll probably be busy.
Maybe.
All right, well, at this stage, the motion will be the council endorses the attendance of the Mayor and Councillor Maidman to the 2023 Local Government Association Ordinary General Meeting to be held on the 14th of April. You're moving that way, Councillor Roundtree?
Yes, Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, I went for. Any debate, any further debate? We'll close.
Closed.
Put the motion, all those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Number 4 is the 2022-23 Annual Business Plan second quarter review. There's a recommendation that council adopts 22-23 Annual Business Plan second quarter review. Is someone prepared to move that way for the purpose of moving it and discussing it? Councillor Peach. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment, thank you. Councillor Peach, you want to speak to it at all?
Not at this stage, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Maidment,
I know at this stage.
any other councillor wish to speak to that? Any questions? In that review, Councillor Roundtree, then Councillor Arthur.
So I was looking particularly at page 24. And there's a blue box with a tick saying complete. And I worry about marking things off as complete when it's to consider something but this one doesn't see, like, it's not more to consider something. This one was more about an action to be taken, but I don't believe the action has been taken.
That one is which one?
So it's on page 24, implementation of first year findings for the growth strategy. Strategy endorsed December 22, acknowledging this as a living document. So to me, a living document that's going to be going through changes could possibly be a work in progress and marked up as complete. So the wording from what the first box, the implementation of a strategy, then on the last box, saying that it's a work in progress and, you know, we're still going through it, to me is more of a work in progress. I know it's pedantic, but I worry sometimes when things are marked as complete, they move off of lists, and I don't think that should. And I guess the one underneath, the development of a district-wide growth strategy, has a similar comment and possibly should also be looking at being work in progress, perhaps.
So through you, Mayor, they won't move off the list because this will be reported on every quarter until the end. If there is something significantly outstanding that might come out of the growth strategy, it will go into next year's annual business plan. So
What are we marking off as
First
complete?
year findings to be considered in the 23-24 budget coming up, councillor. The first stage,
We haven't done that yet.
implementation of the first year findings. Well, I think we're working our way through that now. I'll take your point, but
Well, that was my point. So we're saying it's
you would
complete.
much rather it be on track in your view.
Well, I think on track demonstrates where it currently sits. It's
That
not
could be
actually
a consideration
completed.
for.
But I know it's pedantic, but
And you had two, I thought you said.
there was a one underneath it as well, but that's 21-22. Says refer above.
Refer above. So, all right. So that would be your preference. Is that what you're saying?
I think it reflects more what's happening.
Yep. Okay.
The
Councillor,
other question.
you got another one. You two, all right. Yep.
Sorry, it's just regarding the customer service charter. Does the system that we have in place allow or provide stats that show the number of CRMs that are received and are actioned on? I know there's a graph further in the document which talks about when the call comes in, where it's placed, but following on from that, where it's placed to, you know, how many of those are actually resolved, or, you know, are they left out there not resolved, sort of thing.
So through you, Mayor, remember we said that we're starting to collate that data and we need some trends, if you like, to do that. So that reporting in that document will start to evolve over the next couple of months. That customer charter is very old, and we at one point were expecting that the local government reforms would be developing a template across local government. So we held off doing anything with it.
Yeah.
To date, there's been little activity in that area. So we are going to have another look at it because it is one of those guiding documents for staff that we have left a little too long.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Arthur.
Just page 26 on the relationship with the UNA regarding the nature-based tourism investments in the Coorong. It said it's got a master plan there and waiting a workshop between Duna and council members. I just wonder when that's going to happen, because it
So you may. So we have got a draft copy of that master plan. It did go quiet from Dew's point of view. I think they were distracted by the floods. We have renewed the conversations with them. They were waiting for some, apart from staff who were doing other things, they were waiting to do some extra consultation with the NAC. And I can get you an update on that, but at this point, we still only have a draft. We're expecting to get something As soon as we have a document that is in the public domain, we will have a briefing and a workshop with you. And it's a bit like the streetscapes. We'll divide it into projects that we think are suitable for that particular strategic document. And then they, as we mentioned in the briefing before, it'll either be a rate revenue, it'll be a wait for a grant funding opportunity, or at this point, we're not doing anything about it. So
Councillor, we did raise this as an important project. The Deputy Premier was here probably eight weeks ago as well. Russ. Councillor Peach.
Mr Mayor, through you before I close, I note under the Develop Human Resources Manual, that's now at the draft stage. Can I ask the draft please be provided to councillors?
Human Resources Manual. Which page, councillor?
Sorry, page 29, towards the end of the report.
the development of the Human Resources Manual?
Manual, the fourth one.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor, that's what I was speaking about before. It's about a support document for staff. We don't have a sophisticated intranet for staff for keeping documents that guide staff in their practices, whether it's around HR, finance or whatever. And so this is the development of a manual to do that. We have 5 of our internal policies currently being reviewed. And as soon as they're back, we will circulate those, but they are internal documents, but it's for support for staff.
Yes, Mr Smith, through you noting that I did request some time ago that when the document was completed that we would be provided with it.
We don't have
I'm just asking now that the draft is completed that be provided.
To you, Mayor, we don't have it back yet, but Miles may have, the director may have an update on when they're coming back.
Sorry, but I read that it's commenced.
No, the draft has been presented to staff for comment and consultation, so I'm asking if.
Now, that's the measure. The measure is, so I
If
think you need, the progress of this is commencement. The commentary says that it's underway. We haven't had a draft that's been presented to staff at this stage.
To you, Mayor, the draft is more about the style of the manual, what we're going to include in it. It is not the individual policies that you're thinking about, councillor.
okay,
Anyone else? Questions? Debate? There being none, councillor Peach, you actually get to close. Oh, the motion is that council adopts the 22-23 annual business plan. Will the review? I'm on the right agenda item. Yep, certainly am. Put the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Move to the next item, which is Roads Infrastructure Committee 2023 meeting schedule. The recommendation there, councillors. Someone might move that. Councillor Coleman, you'll move. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Hara is the seconder. Is there any debate, discussion? Councillor Coleman, your question or closing?
Oh, just a comment before I close, if I
Yep.
may. I'd say it's interesting, at the end of the report, it is recommended that the council in community sessions be held on the same date. And so that'll be after the INA meeting, we'd have which would be good, I think, because I see the various locations we're going around within the district, so that should gel in quite well.
We would hope so.
I would hope.
We'll give it a go. You're closed?
I'll close.
Okay, I put the motion as it reads, the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 6, the Tintinara Community Gymnasium Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of March. Where's it gone here? There's a recommendation that council receive the minutes of the committee held on the 2nd of March. Simple as that. Councillor Peach is moving. Uptake it. There a seconder, Councillor Arthur. Is Councillor Peach, you want to speak to it?
I do think, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say that the meeting went very well. Thank you to the CEO for her attendance at it. It's managed to clarify a number of outstanding issues for the committee, and the gymnasium is now back in action and running. And I think it reflects very well the minutes of the conversation that took place there that day.
Very kind. Councillor Roundtree.
Just supporting what Councillor Peach said. I was at that meeting as well, and I think they were all very impressed with the CEO and her comments, and I think it went a long way to resolving the issue. So yeah, thank you to the CEO and the staff for doing that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? You'll close, councillor. Closed. So the motion is, as the recommendation is in the agenda, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 11, information reports. Number 1, the council is the Office of Chief Executive Officer. The council receive and note the report. Can someone move that way, please? Councillor Maidment, thank you. You're a seconder. Councillor Coleman. Is there any questions? Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 36, and I gather the page numbers on the PDF relate to what you've got as well. Okay, that's a bit easier. So on page 36, we're on track to see, are we on track to see reach the adopted budget figure of 4.6 million? We're currently sitting at 3 and there's 4 months left. Are we on track?
Through you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You can see it's down from last year, but yes, all the grants that we know about are in there at the moment.
All right, yeah.
Just councillors, there is a different interpretation on page 42 of the agenda. It says there, Tailem Bend Combined Sporting Hub, they've been successful in some grants. It's actually separately clubs within that precinct that have been successful in that grant process. So in case don't interpret that correctly, please. And the report will be amended. Other questions around this? Councillor Roundtree, from questions in relation to the report.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that we've doubled our interest income. So we'd budgeted for 32,000 and we've got already around 77,000. I was wondering what that increase was of interest.
I'll give it a go and then I'll pass it over to the director.
Okay.
I think it would be point in time about money in the bank, as we talked about before at the briefing, when grant money comes in and that type of activity. Miles, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Well, through the whisper, we were talking about interest earnings. We were pretty conservative in setting, what we thought, and we've had, even though, not huge amount of, dollar terms, there have been an increase in terms of rates. But,
Is that late payment of rates or interest on late payments, or?
It could be a combination of things.
Okay.
You've got another question?
I do. So utility costs under expenses, the utility costs at the 28th of Feb are close to what we've set for the budget, and seeing that there are still 4 months left in the financial year, are we expecting that this amount will exceed our budget, considering we're only 11,000 off of the budget and we seem to be averaging around $30,000 and $40,000 a month?
You, Mayor, we're keeping a very keen eye on that because we know electricity prices are due to rise, and probably the quantum of that rise is not something we factored in initially. We knew that they would be rising, but not to the double digits that are now being talked about. So we're watching that closely. That's about all I can say at that point. We are very keen to monitor, and we are not confident, I suppose, but the director might, whether we will.
Is our solar is our solar helping with this?
Yeah, the solar helps, but it not to the extent where the rate rises around that particular cost is going.
In addition, Your Worship, street lighting costs, the power associated with street lighting has increased. So in the budget review 3, we'll be able to work with the first quarter of this calendar year figures and come up with an accurate dollar amount, noting that new contracts were set from the beginning of the year, January the 1st. So the pricing will be coming through in bills in the first quarter of this year. But certainly the solar is dampening what might have been a 50% increase.
So on that subject then, Mayor, on solar, are we, or not solar, I guess, but are we working with other councils? Are we part of an energy buying group that gets any sort of discount?
Yes, we are. No, we're not with the LGA anymore.
That's
There's a conglomeration of 10 councils, mostly of rural, who did some work late last year
Not the mob that's suing us.
Sorry?
Not the mobs that's suing us.
No, no. LGA were going through the same process. Our contract was coming up for renewal. They weren't being quick enough. And we also, with the 10 councils, we were confident that we'd get a slightly better deal. Miles, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and through the, your worship, with that activity that's happening with the 12 councils and their, similar councils, their regional councils, we've entered into 3-year terms for a contract, and we'll start working on what occurs after those 3 years. So ultimately, we're trying to work on how the 12 councils can come together and in a long term secure better pricing or secure pricing, which might mean really challenging the way councils previously have acquired their power. So it may actually be something like a power purchase agreement directly with a renewable energy supplier, which would cut out the retailer. And we have the ability to do that. We've got a bit of work to do over the next year or so. And all of the councils are very keen to do that because, and especially the smaller ones, electricity is quite a significant portion of their budget.
And other questions? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 48, the Murray Coorong Trail. I just noticed of interest in the graph there. Sometimes it's just less than 500, just over 500, and yet October 22nd, we had 3,750. Do we have a branch or something flopping around in front of the counter? People,
Day one moves around sometimes, councillor.
For you, Mayor, that statistic has been there, as you can see, from October. We haven't gone back to see what happens. Like there are school trips, but that is out of sync with what it is. And I suspect there may have been some malfunction of something.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions around the item one? Councillor Peach, then Councillor Roundtree.
I just want to note that the grant for the aerodrome at Tintinara is still in there as lodged and not successful.
Sorry, that should have been updated.
Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the asterisk at the bottom, employee costs also include the internal recharge recoup. Can someone just explain what that means?
Through you, Mayor, where were you reading?
Page.
On page 37, down the bottom, there's an asterisk that relates to, I just didn't understand what internal recharge recoup meant.
With work that happens outside, some of it is charged onto different jobs. So it's a bit of activity-based accounting where we're trying to be quite granular where costs should be allocated to. In a sense, I call it washing machine money sometimes because it's actually money that's internal that isn't new money, but it's about an allocation method that we're trying to establish.
So internal recharge recoup means just, sorry, I didn't
It's
understand.
internally charged in another
From one
format.
department to another.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Give a more accurate cost estimate of certain processes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more around item one? Questions, debate? There is none. Councillor Maidman, you'll get to close.
Close.
Thank you, very kind. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 2, Corporate and Community Information Report. Councillors, council receive and note the report. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Peach. Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Questions? Councillor Roundtree, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 66, a bar chart, those customers per office. I note that Tintinara only had 5 visitors. I just wanted to know if that's due to the fact that it's only open for a short period of time, or is there just generally a lot of interest?
You Mayor, that statistic hasn't changed since I've been here. It is very low numbers.
Regardless of what day it's open.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions around this report?
I was going to ask a question about that as well, given that there was a number of people in there for a meeting during that month that wasn't counted towards those that you.
Not, wouldn't
They may
have
not
thought for a meeting.
Not for a meeting. This is generally inquiries at the front
Inquiries,
counter.
probably. Councillor Arthur, you,
No, I'm ready to vote.
and you, Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 65, the third paragraph, it says about, in addition, considerable activity was associated with receiving the third quarter of rates instalments. I'd just like to ask through the mayor to the Director of Community and Corporate, people who are in credit with their rates, how come they don't get a hard copy statement when their quarter bills, please?
So you're saying that if people, for whatever action have become in credit in their rates, they don't receive a rates notice saying that if they've got in credit somehow.
Correct.
So you may, we'll take that on notice.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I did have another one.
Yep.
The Calvin Swimming Pool Committee completed actions, shallow end and deep end. Talked about signs having been received and scheduled to be installed. I believe the committee may have also been asking for painted words on the edge of the pool. My recollection of that meeting is correct. I just wondered if that had been picked up at all.
Through you, Mayor, the signage at the pool, we're doing, there's a couple of things that we think we need to do. That's one of them. I don't think, unless the director knows whether that's been done or not yet.
The signs have been installed. We had an audit from the Rural Life Saving Society, and I'm not aware that that was picked up, but there's no reason why that can't happen. If that's something, I guess that wasn't made clear in the original motion, but that I'm aware of, but can happen for sure.
No, I believe their intent was both for signs and also something visual on the actual edge, which used to be on the old pool. Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Peach, you close.
Closed.
The motion is the recommendation as in the agenda. All those in favour? That's against, that's carried unanimously. Now, item 3 is infrastructure and assets report. Someone move that report, please. Councillor Rountree, you're the mover. I presume I'll have a question if I'm a guesser, but I need a seconder first, please. Councillor, come on. Oh, Councillor Arthur is the seconder. Councillor Rountree.
I was going to say, first of all, thanks for including the town names on those roads. That was very helpful for me. And also I really appreciate the photos that accompany in that report. I think it's, I find that really helpful. So thank you for including that. We have 3 patrol graders. And my question is, do they work every day?
At the moment, no. We've had people put staff on leave. They've taken opportunity to take leave. We've also had a couple of illnesses. We also have, you'll note in the corporate and community, one of our most experienced grader operators retire. So we now have a new grader operator in training who is working in tandem with an existing grader operator. So that's at the Meningie site. So that's only working 3 days a week. So they're working in tandem.
The council, you'll be well aware that many ratepayers think we grade too much in this autumn period when it's dry. So we'll see. But also training of graders. The photos on page 74 are quite instructive. I think you may have had at least 3 graders on that job, Matt, on a refurbishment out at Malalong of the Hawks Nest Road, which initially looks really good, as usual, we'll tell. So in terms of training grader drivers, it's hard to do without another grader being with them. So this is probably the time of year to undertake that sort of work.
Thank you.
Your second question is?
Just 2 more questions. Page 78 under water licenses. It may have come up before. Does the council have a water license at the old Canalpin depot? There was comments at a meeting which talked about a bore being owned out at the Canalpin depot, drilled in 1955, tested in 1970.
17,000 parts per million.
Is that what it is? Is that
That
what
would be best capped then, that count, that ratio count.
So is that
there
still
one
owned
there,
by
councillor?
council?
150 metres deep and there's 17,000 parts per million. It starts off at 23,000.
So is that a council owned bore or is that privately owned?
Through you, Mayor, I don't know the answer to that, but
We don't know.
we'll take that on notice. I don't
It'll be
know.
interesting.
Just
The
it wasn't
deputy mayor can speak to the staff about where that is, but
It's
news to
under
me.
the SA government, and probably maybe a water bore years ago. back in nineteen fifty.
Through you, Mayor, we
think it was a
don't,
town
yeah,
board.
we don't report on that, so I assume if it was ours and we were under care and control of it, then we'd be having to report on it, so.
Okay.
I've, in all my time on this council, never heard of it, councillor. But that's in the what was next to the old depot and near the water
Yeah.
drainage big basin on the east side of the railway line. Oh, we'll have a look at it. But news to us.
All right, my last-
They also, like, we get the licenses from the state as well, so if it's not
They should
listed.
know. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Your other question is,
My last one, skate park. I notice on page 86, the photo looks like it's got some cracks or discoloration in the cement. It could just be the photo or it's been wet or something, but is that normal? Just in the photo, it looks like it's got marks
Through you,
all over
Mayor,
it.
I think I was trying to catch the manager of Capital Works this afternoon to ask him the same question.
Yeah.
I think it's wet and dust or sand has blown across it, and
Okay.
it's stuck to the water. But when we were there on our bus tour on the 28th, the concrete looked pretty good.
That's what I thought.
All concrete does potentially have some cracks in it, but yeah, I'm assuming, I hope it is a problem in the photo rather than any issue or defect with the product. I haven't been notified otherwise.
Thank you. I thought the same thing when we saw it in person. It was beautiful. And then I saw that photo and I thought, well, what's going on? Yeah, but thank you for chasing that up.
any other questions, councillors? Councillor Qualman?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 672, key projects moving into the second half of financial year. Number 6, Wattle Street reconstruction. We were told, I asked this question back in December and they said mid-January. And now it's past mid-March.
We've got better news for you, councillor.
Have you? Thank you.
So through you, Mayor, I signed the contract the other day. The director can give you an update on when that's ready to start.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it'll start within the next week or two. Absolutely, the contract's been let and the contractor's ready to go.
Thank you. Things happening. Beautiful.
Any other questions in this report? There being none, councillor Roundtree gets to close.
Closed.
What's the recommendation? Will council receive and note the report? All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 12. Whoa. Questions with notice. On 12. I have none, it says. Questions without notice, councillors? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now that we're all aware the emergency status has been lifted regarding COVID. Prior to that, while we're in the emergency situation, we had people working from home. Now it's been lifted. How does the council operate now working from home? Is everybody expected to return back to work,
Through you, Mayor,
please?
I would say that the expectation of everybody back in the office is probably not one, and it's not unique to this organisation. Across Australia, people now have working from home arrangements. We have just started to compile a policy so that there is some rigour around that. And so we still do have people working from home, but it's with prior permission, if you like. And it has to be a job where you can do it from home. And most people only take advantage of it one day a week or things like that. If people are sick, we prefer that they're sick. But some people, if they're not too sick or they have children who are at home and who are school age, and they will work from home as well. So we have a policy that provides that rigour and framework around it for staff.
Just had a few questions on that related to that from the community. That's all I thought I'd ask. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Hara's next.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director of Roads and Infrastructure.
Little gadget, mate.
Yeah, I noticed today coming up that doing some work on the road into Wellington Lodge. Is that a council road or is that a private job or what?
Through you, Mayor, it is a council road. There is a couple of roads with a similar sort of situation where it appears to be a private road because of stop rates and whatnot, but it is a council road. It's being resheeted.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that, councillor. And if you read the list we were given a week ago about roads, roads for the next 3 years, there's quite a group in that category, to be quite honest, but there you go. Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. I had an email this morning from a Wellington East resident who lives in the marina, and she was just wondering how the investigation into improving the water supply was going.
Second that one.
Through you, Mayor. So when you say improving the water supply, is it because it's non-potable water, turning it into potable water, or what
Yes.
was the issue?
That's what I gathered, yes.
So we are still having conversations with SA Water. Director, do you have any update on that?
Yes, through you, Mayor. SA Water's latest indications that they're going to start the detailed investigation, which required dig ups and testing the pipe infrastructure in late April, which isn't as early as I would have liked, but they do have a fair bit going on. So yeah, look, we're still onto it, and the gentleman I've been speaking to is still very committed to working through the process.
Okay, so if I forward through you, Mayor, if I forward this email on to you, you could perhaps respond to you. All right, thanks, Bridget.
Any other questions without notice, councillors? Councillor Peach.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, just asking for an update about the road damage in the main street in Tintinara from SA Water.
Through you, Mayor, the
Right.
director can answer that one.
Matt, please.
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, very aware and not overly impressed with the response that I've had from SA Water. Although today I have managed to get in contact with one of their field supervisors who's based in Mount Gambier, who has indicated that he's going to contact me tomorrow to discuss.
Okay. Any other questions without notice? Councillor Qualman again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've had a question from a local ratepayer in Tarlan Bend regarding council's responsibility regarding repairing their driveway. They made an inquiry or put a CRM to repair potholes in their driveway which go on council land on the road verge, and were told that council doesn't repair driveways anymore. Someone verify that, please.
It's a policy issue almost. It's one is this, where's it sit?
Through you, Mayor, I would rather take that one on notice, and we need to know the actual resident, because that could be a whole combination of things, but it would be handy if we could do that out of session.
Yeah, councillor, we probably do need to do a bit of work on that. I think it's been around for a while where council's responsibility on driveways is and where the ratepayer is.
Director, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it is a tricky topic. The driveway is the responsibility of the landowner from the back of the curb or the edge of the seal to the property boundary. If it wasn't, then council would probably only ever fix driveways as their business, because there's that many of them. And the driveway is only there as to serve the property. That's the purpose of the driveway. So if there was no property there or no driveway access, the driveway would not be there. But that is the reason why the driveway crossover is the responsibility of the landholder.
Which is why, Mayor, it would be better if we knew the actual circumstances.
So perhaps I notice the minutes will note that we might take it on notice. I thank you for that very constructive discussion, because there's many versions of the same thing here. We probably need to get on top of this as a public sort of document or a public explanation.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, councillor, I've got a crook neck. Anyone else with questions without notice? Sorry. No more. I'll take that as being complete. Item 13.1, motions with notice. Councillor Peach moves that when legal advice is provided to councillors at the discretion of the CEO, the letter of instruction that facilitated the advice is also disclosed to councillors in a format to be determined by the CEO on a case-by-case basis. You moving that as it reads, councillor?
So moved.
Okay, and do you want to speak to it now, or want to wait for a seconder?
I'm happy to speak to it now.
You speak to
Thank
it
you,
now if
Mr.
you like.
I think the motion is fairly self-explanatory. There's been a little bit of toing and froing around the wording here, but I think it satisfies the intent of what I was aiming for. When legal advice is received, it essentially is the answer to a question. And sometimes it's very helpful to have the context of the question in understanding the framing of the answer. So that's the intent behind it. And I think this gives the flexibility, particularly that last section, if there is a matter in confidence, that gives the CEO the flexibility to issue it as determined on a case by case basis.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? I'm going to take councillor O'Hara because I saw 4 hands, so you want to speak, councillor? I take that as you don't want to speak. No. Anyone else wish to enter debate here? Well, you get a closing 5 minutes too, councillor, if you need it. Close.
I think I've spoken to it enough. We'll close.
All right, councillors, it is as it reads. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Next item is councillor Rountree in relation to. I'll read it for you, councillor. So you're moving that the council, as per the motion contained in the Canalpin District Soldiers Memorial Swimming Pool and Caravan Park Committee minutes dated the 23rd of January this year, reinstate a community asset being either a coin operated or card operated washing machine, the caravan precinct as soon as practical or before the commencement of the 23-24 swimming season, October. And the CEO's comment is the budget will be incorporated, a budget for this washing is incorporated into the budget discussions in the building renewal part. You're moving that way, councillor?
I am, Mayor.
That early dinner's getting to me. You wish to speak to it now or?
Yes, thank you to the CEO for providing that comment. However, I don't see this reinstatement of a facility that is actually in the room that it's going to go in, it's all set up ready for a washing machine. I don't see it as something that should become a budget bid or something to be looked at later. I don't believe it's going to be overly expensive to do it in the scheme of things. And it would certainly be a great asset for the community and something they really never wanted to lose and would very much like back. So I take the point that it could be put into a renewal building program budget line, but I see this as just reinstating something that was already there, and I would like to move the motion as it reads.
There's a seconder. Councillor Maidment, Councillor Qualman, you're just not quick enough. At the moment, you wish to speak to this or not?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would. I think that this is, I'm in agreement with councillor Rountree that I think it needs to be replaced. And it also could be, if it's coin operated or card operated, a way of reimbursing the costs of putting it in the first place. So I think it's a community asset and it should go back in sooner rather than later.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this?
Mr. Mayor, I just have to vote against this on principle. Principle being that we just can't ad hoc during the year bring these sort of things up for expenditure when you've got a budget item. We don't know how much it's going to cost. They were talking $6,000-8,000 there before. So I agree with the CEO's comments. It should go into the included in the budget discussions for 2023. So we'll be voting against it purely in principle, not against the item itself, but in principle.
Okay. Anyone else for or against?
Yeah.
Councillor O'Hara.
Mr. Mayor, I tend to agree with councillor Arthur actually that yeah, it should be done that way. I'm not against it either.
But the same principle, right? That's fine. Anyone else for or against? Because
Mr. Mayor, I'll speak in favour. I understand councillor Arthur's concerns. I think in the case of this item, it was a pre-existing asset that should be replaced. So I'm in favour of the motion.
okay. Anyone else? There being no one else, councillor Rountree, you'll close.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion carried with councillors Arthur and O'Hara voting against it. Councillors Rountree, Peach, Qualman and Maidment voting for it, but it remains carried. Thanks. Hey, everyone. 13.2 motions without notice.
Mr. Mayor, before we go on with that, I forgot a question without notice. It is relevant to the elected members. Would you allow me to ask that?
You better try me quickly.
Very quickly.
Remember my next no good.
As you know, the LGA are running a deputy mayor's forum.
Yes.
In May, which I've been informed of. But I would just like the opinion of the elected members whether you think the $605 that this is the cost of the forum would be money well spent or not. I know I'll probably learn something out of it, probably a lot of things out of it.
You would you?
But it is $605, so I'd like the thoughts of the elected members before I.
Perhaps it's best they tell you privately at the end of the meeting, councillor.
Sorry?
Perhaps it's best they tell you privately at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I think.
The agenda looked pretty pointed, actually. It was quite just interesting, but perhaps the councillors.
I'm sure it would be, yeah, but you know,
but
I'm just thinking $605
Yeah, well,
is a lot of money.
What do you get for that through you, Mayor?
he gets a day of learning.
Lunch?
And we do have a budget for the training even of councillors, but that you get a day of learning,
I'll make
councillors.
decisions.
They will inform you afterwards, councillors. Anyway, we move on. Is there any motions without notice? Sorry. Councillor Peach.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a motion that when council engages in community consultation or meetings with community groups, the councillors are invited unless the community group expressly asks otherwise.
Councillor, I'm actually going to ask you to do some more work on that and put it up next meeting. And there's a reason. Council engages with community groups or consultation. I'll need to know, I think the councillors will need to know how wide a ambit you are actually asking what is consultation. And what I'm saying is that sometimes it's a formal consultation. We have some coming up at a variety of levels, but if the CEO was to be invited to something to consult with three people, is that considered consultation by council? I need to probably allow a bit more definition around that. That's probably why I ask you to formulate a motion with notice next meeting. Because that's my trouble, is where is the defining line on this one?
I would say community groups. Like there obviously there's certain times when directors or CEO would need to meet with individuals or organisations, perhaps corporate, that it wouldn't be appropriate. But when it's a general information session discussion with a community group, to be quite frank, Mr. Mayor, it is embarrassing when you find out about a meeting with a council, with the group, afterwards when the people that were at that meeting presume you would already know about it, as occurred this week. So I think, and I understand completely if a community group doesn't want councillors in attendance, no issues with that. But I do think it's important. It's our job to be engaged in community consultation and community engagement. So I do think it's important that we are invited. If it is the council meeting with a community group, we are the council. And I think it's appropriate for councillors to be informed and invited.
Just looking for what would be the end result out of this, or the end position. And sorry, Councillor Roundtree.
So I'm actually happy to second this motion. My reasoning behind this is similar to Councillor Peach's, in that it is embarrassing to find out a meeting's happened, and the expectation is that people in the community think we know about them. And so when we don't come, they think we're not interested. They don't understand till we tell them that we haven't been informed that it was even happening. And they just assume that when they speak to the CEO and say, we'd like you to come to a meeting of the pool committee, whatever, that they just assume that we're invited, when in fact we don't know sometimes that it's happening. And I think that's where
You've raised exactly my issue of why it needs more thinking.
well, I think the explanation in the motion was quite clear. I don't see that it is ambiguous at all.
You said that when someone rings the CEO and wants a meeting, do they want a meeting with the CEO with us?
Well, when I say the CEO, I mean council. And whether it's ring or email, doesn't matter. When they contact the council, and the council's to come to one of their meetings, as a courtesy, if we knew about it, we could decide not to come, but we were invited to attend the meeting over at Menengi Lions to talk about the shelter, and I thought that was great that, you know, we had an opportunity to go and be involved in that if we wanted to, and I'm not sure who and I couldn't make it, but others may have, and it's that sort of courtesy I think would be useful for other meetings of community groups that would expect that we would know about it.
Sorry, I am giving it some. I'm probably going to restate that I think it needs to be formalised at the next meeting. I really do, because I think it needs a bit of work around it as a report or a discussion, because there's the defining line of when council staff meet someone for some purpose and when we think we should have been invited. Councillor O'Hara.
Yeah, I'd just like to give support for the motion as well. I think it is very embarrassing when that happens, but it happens. It does happen, and there's yeah.
I don't
I'd just like
disagree.
to support the motion.
I'm not taking, I think, sorry, councillor, I'm not going to take the motion because I can. Just decline to take it, but ask you to formalise a motion with notice for the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if that's the case, can I ask that I can work directly with Ashley on it?
You can,
If that's appropriate,
I would have think.
because I do understand the nuance around the individual where
I-
that's private.
I
I do
understand
think
what
it
you're
is
trying to
captured.
get at, but it will be at some point, a senior staff member will be asked, well, why weren't we invited? And I'd like that to be quite clear before we go any further through this.
And I noted in my original remarks, I do think it's important that a community group is given the option to say they only want to meet with somebody as well.
That's right.
So that probably does need to be reflected.
But so, I would have said this before in this chamber, that the best way forward for people to have enough time to consider motions fully is by a motion on notice. That's what I'd ask you to do. Perhaps for the next meeting. Anyone else? Motions without notice? Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. I would actually like to move that the Carnarvon Hall Committee be reinstated as a Section 41 committee.
And the same, I'm going to say this exactly the same again right now, because that will
When
need,
we're finished.
yeah, I know. But I'm going to tell you the same thing. I received some criticism for accepting motions without notice in the last 12 months.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask that we have some very strict, some guidelines around what you would accept as motions without notice? Because
Yeah.
I don't think there's much point having it as a line item if every time we bring up a motion, it's deferred respectfully.
Absolutely.
I will do that. Yes.
The instruction to me is to formalise it at the next
There's a
meeting.
motion on notice for the next meeting. Anyone else? Okay, we move on. Minute action list is on the following pages, councillor. Item 14. Anything, councillors? There's not.
That's the first one.
Anything? Early.
So, Mayor,
I have given you
I'm going
time.
to jump in on councillor Arthur's behalf. Page 5, minute 071-22, regarding the waste management system presentation. Could we have some of the documentation from that workshop? Slides for that. We were discussing this on the way up.
Through you, Mayor, we'll have a look what the workshop PowerPoints were, and we'll send them out again.
Thank you.
Okay, yep. Anyone else in that document? Well, we'll move on. The number 15, confidential items. Councillor Rountree, you've indicated you're going to declare on this one.
I'm going to declare a general conflict of interest as I am the respondent in the complaint. I have emailed council with regards to my wishes for releasing it from confidence. So I will pack up and leave. And leave you to discuss.
That'll be lovely. Thank you. So you're giving us a general sense and you're choosing to leave, not vote on the item.
Correct. Work too much longer, must stop. I realize how much stuff I have. Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
See you.
Okay, councillors, there's a recommendation to move into confidence. Someone move that way, please.
Move into confidence, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arthur, is there a seconder? Councillor Coleman, any discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 1, review of item